Hi, for those of you who don't yet know me, I am Jamie Fagan, and I teach history online and on the Marietta campus here at GHC. I am here to talk to you about how I use Perusall to facilitate discussions in history classes that have a significant online component. I am providing you with my contact information, a little bit about my background. Please feel free to send me an email, call, text, if you have questions or need help with Perusall. I'm absolutely happy to help. Um, so I wanted to start by talking about the problem, I guess maybe problems, but the problem I was trying to solve. Um, I have been teaching online for almost 10 years now. I've probably taught 70 online classes between GHC and eCore, and I have tried running discussions in multiple ways. I have tried treating them like essays, where students have to construct an argument, provide evidence, and cite. I have had them role play for specific historical events. I've had them answer a series of guided questions. I've had them pose questions to each other. I have had half the class take one side of a debate and half the class take the other. And each version had its benefits, each version had its drawbacks, but absolutely none of them came close to hitting on what was so valuable about an in class discussion. One of those, kind of engaging with ideas that happens organically in the classroom. And that was the problem I was trying to solve. How do I get meaningful discussions and effective use of distance learning to help our students succeed? So let's pause for a moment and think about what kind of challenges you experience in your own online classes. How do you get web students engaged in the kinds of conversations that help with intellectual growth? If you pause here, click on Add Comment at the top of the screen, you can go ahead and get started in a conversation using Perusall with your coworkers, with your colleagues here. Okay, so welcome back. In terms of my attempt to solve this problem or to address this problem, I started with a course redesign. My use of Perusall coincided with a shift to 8-week classes. So, a couple of caveats. I have primarily used this with 8-week courses, both online and hybrid. All the classes that I've used it in, for the most part, have a significant web component to it. I have used Perusall to manage an assignment when I was out sick in a 16-week face to face class, but that was a one off. I don't rely on it regularly yet. But I started with thinking through what I wanted students to learn and how I wanted them to engage with these historical thinking skills that are at the core of our learning outcomes. So I started with a central historical question. The flow of the class is organized around these questions, which change from week to week. They can be something like, did the Constitution betray the Revolution in an American history class? Or are we in a post American world, as Fareed Zakaria has argued, in a world history class? In other words, it's a question that can have multiple answers, each supported by historical evidence. I like to make it something interesting and slightly contentious so that students will engage. They ultimately answer this question in a case study assignment that they submit each week. To help them in the process, they get video lectures to provide context and narrative, and they get primary sources so they can actually do the work of the historian. But that middle piece, the one that connected all of these elements, that made all of these other pieces work together, was missing. What could I use to help students understand the question, the context, and the historiography of the topic that they were discussing? Enter Perusall. I use Perusall on a regular basis every week to provide students with an article written by a scholar of the field that addresses the central historical question. Okay, so in part, I use Perusall to expose them to secondary sources that speak to the question that they're answering, so they can see how some historian has answered that question. Then they're asked to make observations on the article and to respond to their classmates' posts. You can see what I've done here. I'm still playing around with these instructions to ensure quality responses, but you can tell that I'm aiming to foster both comprehension and discussion. So comprehension of the article and discussion of the ideas within these assignments. Before Perusall, I often felt like I had two choices for students, either guided in the classroom or self-guided online. And I find that Perusall offers a third option, guided online work in which quality engagement with the course material can be graded. You can keep an eye on it, which makes it much more likely to be completed than just assigning an article to read. Let's pause again. What's something you wish you could move online to free up class time, but you haven't been able to until now? Why? Discuss that in the comments, and then we'll keep going. So, in terms of this model that I followed, what do these Perusall assignments accomplish in my history classes? Well, I think they serve five functions. First, they facilitate more engaging discussions. Look at this example. You can see how much engagement over here on the right-hand column students have with these articles. They're tagging each other, they're going back and forth, they are bringing in not only what they read, but what they've experienced in their own lives and what they thought, what they knew coming in, what they learned from reading it. Students are more comfortable. Most students are more comfortable with the social media formatting. Tagging me and their classmates makes it easier to follow up on questions. So it just increases the engagement. Number two, they provide context for the CHQ, for that question of the week, explaining the key issues involved. Consider this example. One of my questions was, did the Constitution betray the Republic, or sorry, did it betray the Revolution? And this Perusall assignment addresses that directly. It starts with an article by Jeffrey Rogers Hummel, who says, yes, it betrayed the revolution. He gives his argument for why. You can see that students have been engaging with that argument. And then after they have gotten through kind of the yes argument, they get the no argument. So Perusall has allowed me to put together a document where they can see both sides. They can see, two different takes on the question, which helps them understand that the central historical question doesn't have one right answer, that I'm looking for them to engage in evidence-based argumentation. Number three, these assignments allow me to manage the discussion with guiding questions. I would highly recommend that you post at least a few questions in the article to help students identify the key points. If there's something you really want them to get out of the article that they might overlook, then make it a question. Have them engage with you and with it. 4, they allow students to ask questions and seek clarification on points that are still confusing to them. In this example, I have a student who has asked a question about relatively one of the finer points of the article. It wasn't essential to the classroom discussion or to the central historical question, but she was interested in it. And so I was able to offer an answer to engage with her curiosity without, using up class time to do so. So I found that really helpful. I also have students who maybe don't understand a particular line or a particular word or a particular argument, and this lets them ask me questions, and I don't have to remember what their questions were for class time. I can answer them right then and there, so we're all on the same page when we come into class. And finally, they improve engagement for students and for me. And I don't have an example of this because it's really about how I feel about Perusall. Um, because I find with some tweaks, I find the grading algorithm to be particularly useful. I find it to be successful. Every once in a while I have to double check it and it gets things wrong and I have to fix it. But for the most part, it's quite good. I get to spend my time talking to students rather than grading these discussions. So, I find that these benefits outweigh the challenges, and I like using Perusall. I think students like using Perusall. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not particularly steep. So I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. So let's pause one last time. What is one way you could use Perusall in your classes? What potential challenges do you see in getting started? Once again, click to add a comment, and I'll see you in the comment section. So, like I said, I would definitely recommend giving Perusall a shot. I will be engaging in the conversation uh, over the course of this lab, but if you have questions after this lab ends, you are welcome to email, call, or text me, and I will help you to the best of my ability. Thanks for your time and for allowing me to participate in this lab, and I look forward to speaking with you in the comment section.